Welcome to another Quizzy Monday, and it's been quite an eventful Monday evening with a very, very tight mastermind match and perhaps a surprise winner, a fantastically high-scoring and really entertaining Only Connect match, and a very, very tight University Challenge match. We'll be covering all of that later. We'll also, of course, be revealing who are the nominees for Quizzer and Team of the Week for this week. And let's tell you who won last week. Very quickly, these are the winners. Quizzer of the Week last week was Evan Lynch for a week in which he won the World Series of Quiz and the Speed Quizzing Elite event. Second was Marbioli, individual winner of episodes 2 and 6 of the Chinese Poetry Quiz Show. And third was Kevin Ashburn for an OQL Full House and 7 out of 8 in Quiz League of London. Team of the Week was More Porkians for their quarter-final victory in Only Connect. Second was Jesus College Cambridge for their win in University Challenge. And third was We're Still on Mute, a Division 5 team in OQL USA who had a high-scoring win. Don't forget, you can nominate anyone for Team and Quizzer of the Week. Go to tinyurl.com/ATQ nominations. Nominations close at 5 p.m. every Monday. So those were the winners, and later tonight we will be releasing the nominees for Quizzer and Team of the Week. But let's get straight on with the chat. You saw them earlier on Only Connect, and actually you saw one of them in our title sequence. We've got John from the Harlequins, and we have all of the Scrummagers. So please welcome onto the stream John, Zach, Liz, and Molly. Welcome all.
Hello, good evening.
And it's that brutal part of the series where we say goodbye to people. John, I mean, we were here, about a year ago when we were saying goodbye on University Challenge, and here we are again.
Yeah, second series in a row that we bowed out in the quarterfinals, but like the England football team, I guess.
very, very much like the England football team. And Scrummagers, that was quite the performance on your part. Looking back, does it surprise you quite how well it went for you?
Yes, at the time. I think we were all quite shocked, especially after the first round and how poorly we'd done on the first round historically.
Yeah. I think the other thing was that we, I don't know about the other two, but I immediately recognized the Harlequins when we walked into the green room because I think it was mid it would have been filmed sort of mid series while University Challenge was being broadcast.
Yeah,
been, wouldn't it?
we spotted them at the hotel breakfast.
Oh, I don't remember.
Yeah, and I spotted them and I was like, we're playing them because they were talking to the crustaceans or someone, and I was like, well, we're not playing them, so we must be playing them. Yes. And that sort of put the fear of God in me, definitely.
Yeah. It was quite an intimidating thing to sort of recognize it's not something you expect to sort of recognize your opposition. But I mean, when you after chatting for them for a bit, they were very much, very, very obviously really lovely and very much not intimidating.
no, but very
in the best possible way.
Our plan to intimidate didn't work.
See, John, if we're tracing back the root cause of where it all went wrong, it was like not being intimidating enough at breakfast.
Too
nice.
No, you are a lovely team, and Anne and Michael, just wonderful. When you were in that breakfast room in the morning, were you scanning around for groups of 3 people who looked like Only Connect types?
Yeah, I think we knew the crustaceans already, so I think we were chatting to a couple of the crustaceans over breakfast, and we were kind of looking around, being like, where are there 3 other potentially nerdy geeky groups?
Who looks the type?
Yeah, indeed. The worry is when you spot people who aren't even on Only Connect but just look the type, you feel now we got some people in the chat, obviously, and don't forget you can put questions and comments in the chat. Catherine says, evening all. And Gerard, kia ora, everyone. I think it's Waitangi Day. It better be, otherwise you've wasted that kia ora knowledge. But John's just raised a glass.
It's not kia ora I'm drinking.
Catherine's put in the chat her personal 5-point or personal champagne moment. We'll get on to champagne moments later on in the chat. You might notice I've also got a thing saying Gareth All Things Quiz, in case you didn't know it was Gareth from All Things Quiz now. That's a new feature. So for those of you who might be watching for the first time, I am Gareth from All Things Quiz, but also running All Things Quiz is Valerie. She is the brains behind Lunchtime Quiz Time, writes all of those questions. And what is a question? She puts all of that together, all the questions, the graphics, the votes, everything we do. So together we are All Things Quiz. And if you like what we do, please just give us a little like on the video and subscribe if you're not subscribed, because all of that helps other people like you to find us. So, advert out the way. Round one. Scrummagers, you'd not had the best of times in round one before.
Can you say that again?
Was that preying on your mind going into this game?
Oh, a little bit. Well, more than a little bit.
Yeah, I think so.
We'd done practice questions, we'd done auditions, and we'd not really.
We never had issues with it until
not
the show.
properly issues, but in the show it was
Yeah.
like why don't we know
do it,
anything?
yeah.
Nothing came up that we knew, and then suddenly there we were. Oh, we know that.
We
one.
know it. We know.
Then the next question was, oh, we know that one too, and it was we outscored our first 3 round one performances on our first question.
Yeah.
So that was amazing.
Yeah. That's going to give you confidence going forward. John, your team had done really well get up to this point, but you had a bit of bad luck picking the categories in round one. You got 2 that went dead unanswered. At that point, is because you started off by saying let's not get the music question. Music question. And after that, the then getting the pictures question, did you start to feel a little bit kind of Michael had crossed paths with a cat, and Anne had walked under a ladder, and I don't know what else you could do that's unlucky, but were you feeling that, hang on, this is not going as planned?
I mean, obviously, we would have liked to have got some more points after the first round, but I think we were fairly relaxed and thought it was for 3 more rounds to go, so it can go either way. But fair play to the Scrummagers. They did really well. You can only answer what's in front of you, and they did really well with the questions they had, and we didn't. So that's the luck of the draw.
That's exactly how we felt after our first game against the Crustaceans. The first round, we were like, could have answered their question, could not answer our own.
I get because your very first question was the Othello Iago one, wasn't it?
Yes.
Michael has a PhD in Shakespeare studies.
Yeah.
I think he was slightly rueful of the fact that we didn't have that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I have no doubt that would have been absolutely eaten up.
Yeah.
Like him, yeah.
But you got that on the second question. You also got the one about Robin Williams on the second question, so that really helped you to get a very strong round one. Whereas John, as we were saying, music, pictures. But I did.
Although in previous matches, we'd actually done pretty well on the picture rounds and the music rounds. But it just.
And did get the picture one eventually, didn't she?
Yeah, she did actually. To be fair,
yeah, a couple of seconds later than. Yeah, but she did get it, didn't she?
Yeah, in fact, she was towards the end of the time, she was saying Burmese, Siamese, and then and then I think Michael was saying stuff, and it was just like, I don't know.
It's so hard.
So all I recognise is West Bromwich Albion.
Yeah, and that time pressure gets to you, but you did pick up the reburials one at the end, which must have given you a bit of a sigh of relief that you didn't get a 0 on that first round, John. Did it kind of prey on your minds going into the second round? Do you have any time between round 1 and round 2 to be really taking it in?
Very little.
No, it goes straight through. You film the first 2 back to back.
I can't remember. Do they give a second for any sort of quick, retakes of any of Victoria?
No, they do all the pickups of the first 2 rounds.
So it is pretty much straight away. You go straight from round 1 to round 2.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
So first round, the teapots one, nice countdown. I mean, it was a good inventive round. Round 2, that one played a lot more. A lot better for you, John. How did you feel about that round? Some of those questions in that one.
Again, we started off with the music one again. I think with the Baby One More Time, which really as soon as the Justin Bieber song came up in my head, I think this is Justin Bieber, but for whatever reason, I didn't say it, and then I think either Michael Rand said, I think it's One Direction, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe it's One Direction. And then I thought we had a good idea for a sequence. It was like 1, 2 with you two, and then we didn't really know what the third one was, so we thought maybe it could be 3, and then something with 4 in. But and even in the panic of that, I couldn't even think of a group that had 4 in the name. Apollo 4, 4 tops, 4 seasons, whatever. I was like Apollo 440. I was got a 4 in the name. But,
I think there's a few of those sort of questions, aren't there, where it sort of makes a phrase or a or a title of something, and you can sometimes see all of them and know what all the clues are, but not necessarily get what they're getting at. Because we had one. It reminded me of one of our questions on our earlier game, which was there was Great Balls of Fire. So and it was I can't remember which game it was in, but it was it was missing words from phrases. They missed out a word from various phrases to spell Great Balls of Fire, and I think Liz got it after the second. It was Ed Balls. Blank Britain and Ed Blank, I think, with the with the clues, and then and it's just it's one of those things where you either see it or you don't, and, even if you sort of figure out what all the clues are going to be.
Because with the music questions in round 1, you could sometimes get the connection based on just knowing one song. But I think with a sequence like that one, the only one of those I knew was 1, so I was thinking, okay, is it going like nothing 1, 2, 3? 3 is the magic number. That was where I was going with it, because I only knew the one answer there. To get a sequence like Baby One More Time, you need at least 2 of those answers, or you're never going to get it.
Definitely.
So that was tricksy. The other one, again, the Presidents of Ireland. On the one hand, it's like once you know what it is, it's like, well, but seeing it's tricky.
And being Irish, that wasn't great. We didn't get that.
I haven't spoken to my parents about that
one. Michael, I loved how you got to Twilight Zone, which
we didn't even know, like somehow something tweaked in my head that it might be it. We didn't even have the right reason for why it was, but
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fine. It doesn't matter as long as you get the points. And I also thought the last one, the North American national animals, that was quite a because it's like axolotls are Mexican, etc. But there was such a list of them. For me, it didn't naturally say in a way that if it had been one animal in each one and you could peg each one to a country, have loads of them. It's like I just think, what the hell's going on? How did you come to that one, John?
I guess it helped having Anne and Michael, who are both North American, on the team. Even maybe it worked against us later on with local ferry routes and things. But even if that one, I went for the maple flag at the end, thinking it was just any sort of symbol of Canada. But I guess it's got to be specifically an animal.
I remember we were sort of sat there going, is it a moose? Like, what is it? What could it be?
Well, I think because I went to Guatemala a few years back and recognized the quetzal as their national bird or their national animal, because I think their currency is named after it. And they made quite a big deal. I think it's sort of on a lot of paint. There's a lot of sort of murals and it's painted everywhere, and they're very very fond of it. So I sort of recognized it, but then obviously you got to figure out where it's going from there.
Yeah. Pam has just got back from Central America. She was hoping to see a quetzal on holiday, but we didn't get lucky. Just gonna have to go back, Pam. Just gonna have to go back.
Absolutely.
That's all there is for it. Who was the one who spotted that calculation in question 1 of round 2, the 7th of March 21?
Molly, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because that could have been baffling.
Being a very not mathsy person. I spotted it quite quickly, and watching it back, I'd completely forgotten about the question, and I was like, oh, I said that. Oh, yes. I'd completely forgotten because I couldn't see a sequence, so I was like, there's got to be something weird. I've got to think laterally, and that was my first thought.
Yeah. That was really good the way you came to that, because I wasn't anywhere on that at all. And the other one, the Millennium, the Stieg Larsson books, but that was Zach Uzak, I think.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I think. Which one was? Yeah, Spider's Web was the fourth one. I think. Yeah, I can't remember why I saw.
I think you said Hornets.
It was you said Hornet. And
I thought Hornets rather than anything else that makes that kind of rather than Wasps basically, I suppose. But I can't remember why I sort of thought that. But then as soon as I thought Hornet's Nest, I think my mind jumped to that book and that series of books. I mean, I've not read them. I don't know anything about them other than the titles.
I read them.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. But obviously, I think everyone knows the first and the most famous. So, sort of good solid only connect logic, go with the most obvious one.
We played that before. We did that with our the 7 wonders question that we had in one of our previous rounds, where it was, we didn't know what the fourth one was, but we went, well, go for Giza. Where else is it going to be? And it was the right answer. It was guessed the most likely, most well known one.
John, I guess that's the value of team speaking out loud, just throwing things out there, because you could easily have just gone web, nest, or spiders, wasps, whatever. Yeah. But just throwing out as much out there, see if something twigs. Your team was doing that, but didn't necessarily have quite the same joy.
Didn't have any of the right answers.
but as a tactic, your team was very good at vocalizing. Was that something that was natural, or you worked on?
Yeah, I think it's something that inevitably comes. I suppose the more you practice with each other, you kind of get used to just batting ideas back and forth and hope that something kind of sticks. But yeah, sadly today we were firing out lots of ideas and nothing seemed to be quite hitting the mark. But
yeah, it's one of the plus side. On the plus side, Anne did get to show off her phenomenal Eurovision.
Yeah. We're all disappointed that she didn't sing it, though, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think before we even started, our whole journey on the show, Anne said she just wanted to get some Eurovision fact in there because she's a huge Eurovision fan.
Mission accomplished.
And in fact, she for our very first show that we did, she'd been in Turin, I think it was, for the semi-finals of Eurovision, and flew back. She missed the second semi-final because she goes out every year to watch the final and the semi-final, and she missed the second semi-final to fly back in order to be on the first show with us. So it was good. She managed to show off some of her Eurovision.
That's dedication. We love Anne. She's brilliant, and would love to have had her on. But it is Eurovision season. She writes a blog under the name Dude Points, all one word. So if you're interested in Eurovision, you want to hear somebody who is incredibly knowledgeable, enthusiastic, but writes really, really well about it, as well as doing fantastic guide before the finals that help you really enjoy and appreciate what's going on, then look up Anne's blog, Dude Points. We'll see about putting a link in the description afterwards as well. So Anne, we hope we get, one or two more people perhaps checking out your blog as a result of that. The walls. You were up first, John, and there was one set which seemed to have 6.
Yeah, it's the Nobel Peace Prize.
Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah, that was tough, and time pressure really kicked in on you.
Yeah, and when you've got 5 in a group, you can just cycle through and you leave one out each time. And then when it's 6, I'm not mathematical either, like Molly. So I don't know what the possible combinations are if you've got four possible things in a group of 6. But I thought I haven't got time to cycle through this group of 6. I don't know what the best way to do it is. So we had to put those to one side, and then fortunately got a couple of the other groups. But then even I think with the other 2 matches we played, we'd solved the wall pretty quickly. We'd got all 4 groups within a minute or so. So it was the first time that we'd had any sort of pressure, and I certainly felt towards the end I was just stabbing things randomly. And watching it back tonight, I was like, I kept on putting bolts into the Nobel Peace Prize winners. I was like, I don't know why did I do that? Bolt is clearly not a Nobel Peace Prize winner. But yeah, it's just the mad panic in the last 15 seconds or whatever.
Yeah. But
did you ever find out who Begin or Begin was? The one that was it's
the Israeli.
It's
Menachem Begin.
Begin.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Yeah. So there was a glorious penny dropping moment though, when the Kingdom Boredom Fiefdom Poppadom.
The people we were watching it with suddenly shouted out.
I'm sure it's one of those things that people are probably shouting at their TVs, Poppadom, but we didn't see it.
Thinking about it, like, what else could it really be? I mean, for me, it's slightly confusing because my grandpa, my mum's dad, we call him Popper. So I was just looking at it, I can't get Popper out of my head. So it was a really good group. It was very well worked, but also the one that we didn't solve, but then Michael spotted at the end where they replaced the first letter and it makes SI unit, which is really clever group.
That was really good spot just to get that connection, even with the words in front of you. I was still looking at it thinking we didn't know what it was.
And there is that thing, and I remember when we played it, of knowing you haven't got one of the categories. So as captain, I was taking as much time as I could to describe the rest of the clues on the wall to give the other team members time to try and work out what the last it's just desperation, but it's brilliant when it comes off, as it did there. And Michael, superb spot on his part. 4 out of 6 is 15 options, says Gareth. That's a lot of options to remember.
I think it's not even the sort of getting through 15 there. It's remembering which ones you haven't put in. Is the trick.
That's really tricky. Interesting from Dan Afshar, who was I believe a finalist on Mastermind last year. The Harlequins wall was used last week in the auditions for next year's series.
Be interesting to know how well they.
How did Dan do?
Indeed. I mean, that would be, I guess, because we've heard before some of the questions will be coming up in auditions. I guess they're kind of making sure they're one ahead of the show coming up. Michael, helpful as ever, is saying, going to have to stick a Peace Prize nomination in for you, St. Paul. Peace Crew running really fast.
Or is it selling Virgin Internet that he does now? Just that instead. My brain has gone screwy.
It's like how my brain was towards the end of the war.
Ballet's gone. Now, I remember when we played some House of Games with the All Things Quiz members, you were damn good on the ballet. In hindsight, did our members quiz bring back bad memories?
It's so funny how most of the questions that were on tonight's show I don't remember doing at the time, like that ballet one. If someone had said to me yesterday, there was a ballet link on your wall, wasn't there? But I don't remember that at all. So so that's one that I completely had blocked out and forgotten that was on it at all, to be honest.
Well, I mean, it was a tough wall. I can't remember. Gerard has put tough first wall, I thought. I think that set of 6 was problematic. You needed something solved to make that into a set of 5, didn't you, really? To then be able to progress. Scrummagers got off to a really flying start with hypothalamus, adrenal, pituitary, thyroid not getting hung up on pineal. That didn't trip you up at all. How did you feel about your wall?
I think it played well. Certainly, I think that first group certainly played to my strengths. I mean,
absolutely. I saw the wall and you were going right.
I mean,
junior doctor Zach Tyler was able to name a lot of plans.
Like a bit of a gift at the start, but I think this is slightly convoluted, but it also kind of worked in my favor with the Jewish sex group because it turned out to be the red herring in the end, but the Ashkenazi one was. It's one of those. I know very little about Judaism, but it's one of the things that sort of sticks in my mind because it comes up in a lot of textbooks that they're a particular group that have a lot of sort of inherited medical conditions that are really prominent within that group. So it's something that you see quite a lot in medical textbooks. Is this particular condition is common in these ethnic groups, and one that was always seemed to be listed at the end was Ashkenazi Jews, and I always remember that. And I know it turned out to be the red herring in the end, but obviously think that was really important because Molly got the trees one.
Yeah.
And
then
that obviously took that out because there's no I would have put that in the Jewish sex group every single time trying to get the last categories, I think, because I would have been convinced that would have been right. So I think that was the fact that we got that one before we got down to the last two groups, I think made it a bit easier. So it sort of did play to our strengths a little bit. I think that one.
And you knew what the other two groups were, but you went down to the wire, kind of getting your elephants sorted.
I didn't remember it got down to our last live.
No, me neither, actually.
No. And I was like, oh God, what's going to happen? Despite doing it. But Well,
I think similar to John, I remember nothing about any episode, I think, other than our first one. I think I remember our first episode. I remembered the majority of the questions, I think, but every episode since pretty much every question has been a surprise again.
What did you make of each other's walls, John? What did you make of Scrummagers?
It's difficult, really. When I think as I was watching it, I was kind of thinking, would we have got this? But I think they were solving it so quickly that I almost couldn't kind of keep up as to whether or not we would have got it. But fair for anyone to get 10 on the wall is a really good performance. So very well done.
Yeah. And Scrummagers, what do you think of the Harlequins? This first time you saw the wall, what did you think of that?
Yeah, again, similar. I mean, I think there's definitely I would have struggled more on that one than our one. I think, purely for what I said before, the those groups that sort of played on little bits of knowledge that were already there. There was definitely less of that for me personally on their wall than there was for ours. So I think would have struggled a bit more.
I had some of the ballet moves. I saw those, but obviously there are a few various French words in there. Then I got the Dums, but apart from Poppadom, and then someone else chimed in with that one in our watching.
I think the SI units with the letter change would have been I don't know if I would have got that.
I think I thought it, but then didn't articulate it before Michael said it. So I was like, would I have got that? Don't know.
Well, you can never really know, but at the end of that, at the walls, 22-11. So you find out when you're in studio. But John, you will have known you went in with a deficit anyway into the walls and didn't solve yours. Did you think, even before you heard it was an 11-point gap, that you had to be aggressive and you had a chance on this?
Yeah, and we kind of said before we went in, I think we're just going to have to try and buzz on everything and just hope that we can get stuff. But as you say, you don't actually find out the scores until Victoria reads them out at the beginning of that round. So that was when we first found out that these guys had got 10 out of 10. And then it was a little bit like, okay, I've got 11 points to make up, maybe a bit too much. You never know. But sadly, it was a bridge too far.
And conversely, Scrummagers, worst case scenario, you were going to be going in with 7-point lead. Were you, did you have any tactics like, for whatever happens, don't give away a point by guessing stupidly, or did you have any?
Never even heard that. I think we were just not used to being in that situation, and so it was a bit of a revelation. I was like,
but we were a few points up going into the missing vowels on the last game, weren't we? Against
it was 7 would still be
a few points up. So I think one of them, someone said something about not taking risks or not, but I think it goes out the window a bit when you get in and you see you see them come on the screen and you think, I know this. Your hand just works independently of your brain a little bit. Just want to get in there and answer. So, if you think you know it, you just want to answer it.
And I think you have. Go on, John.
No, I was just going to. It's been 7 here before, I think, but what people who watch it on TV don't always necessarily realise that there's a slight delay when they broadcast it compared to how it's in the studio. So in the studio, people are pretty much buzzing instantaneously, whereas on TV, I think they give the viewers a second or two head start. So even though people might be watching, thinking, why aren't they just buzzing in for everything? That's what I would do. I think we were trying to do that, but the Scrummagers were just getting in too quickly sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, after that first set, the ferry routes.
I think that played into our hands.
It did. We
were all ferry
people,
ferry holiday people.
Lots of ferry holidays.
Yeah. As soon as the which one? The one to Santander one came up.
Plymouth
Santander. I knew you'd get that, Zach, because I know that you guys have done that one or something very similar.
Yeah, something similar. Yeah, again, lots of holidays to France and I used to lots of time spent on ferries. But I think that was the only one I got. I think I was getting towards the end, and I was like, I've got to get one of these.
Because other than Dover to Calais, which we got, I think you could have given me like 5 minutes on some of them, and I still wouldn't have got them. Because,
Fishpond Rosslare was always going to be a challenge, wasn't it? I was waiting for like gone to
Roscoff, definitely been there. Yeah, loads of them.
So that was pretty much game over. 3-1 to Scrummagers at that point. It was there was no coming back. Tied the American presidents and the things named after them. Again, with 2 Americans on your team, but
played a bit more to our favour.
But it wasn't really specialist knowledge, was it? That's the problem. So you fought back, and then the things that happened on 22nd of November without JFK being in there.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I was waiting for, and then obviously I didn't come up.
I mean, I didn't know that. Like, so that never crossed my mind. So maybe that helped because I mean, I didn't buzz in on any of those. I don't think so. But
but some of those were incredibly long.
The Captain Kirk one. Well done.
Captain Kirk. Well, that was quite long. But there was the one that Michael got, which I can't remember what it is.
Margaret
Angela Merkel being elected.
That one.
That was incredible.
I just remember being blown away.
I don't know if he knew specifically that happened on the 22nd of November, or he just recognised the words as they were coming up.
Yeah, I think certainly that was with the Captain Kirk one. You just start recognising the words. No, it's not. I certainly did not know that happened on the 22nd of November.
We've got Gerard saying, I guess we'll never know, but I suspect Kennedy's assassination was not going to be the thing that happened on November 22nd. Catherine saying, got all the ferry routes, got obsessed with them as a kid, could recite them all. And Gerard's experience of missing vowels, buzzed in, got missing vowels wrong, rightly got an elbow in the ribs for it. I guess that's something to be said for the Perspex screen.
A lot harder to elbow someone.
You've really got to work hard, evil stares or something.
I assume for the next series they'll get rid of the Perspex screens.
I imagine
because we were filming in that sort of window where Wales still had a lot more restrictions than England, where the restrictions were different between the two countries. So I'd assume that they probably would go. I would have thought.
Well, didn't they changed the They changed the restrictions on the toilets during that episode. Yes.
Is that when you guys ran
this
into
is
the loo?
a slightly odd story, but whether it was the adrenaline or whatever it was, when we came off while you were doing the wall, John, Zach and I both go, we need to go to the toilet. And they were only allowing one person in the ladies and one person in the gents at one time because of the COVID restrictions that were more or less being lifted almost that weekend. And it was like, there's someone in the ladies. And I've got to get back and do the wall. So I did actually use the gents' toilets. But, but that was then they after that they literally the next time I went out they'd taken the restrictions off and you were allowed to have 2 people in as long as you maintained a safe distance. So bizarre story.
I think in the toilet you're probably going to be maintaining a safe distance.
Yes.
We would hope. I mean, weird times. I mean, we're already kind of now looking back on them as a little bit weird and surreal, but yes, in time to come.
Well, we were originally supposed to be on the previous series of Only Connect, but Mum had a COVID scare the day we were supposed to travel. I mean, it was 2 days before, and it was before lateral flows were common. So we were waiting for a PCR, and it came back about half an hour after we had
after we were withdrawn from the program.
So then we had to reapply, re-audition, got on, and then we had another COVID scare, obviously. So the weekend before our first lot of filming was my brother's stag do, which my boyfriend, so Zach's brother, went on, and obviously my dad, and they were all just coming down with COVID. And I rang the producers and I was like, what do I do? What do I do? So I came and stayed with Mum over the weekend to just like get away. I was like, nope, sorry, not going near you.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah. And I had to do a lateral flow. We did them every day. Up until the day of filming for like 4 days. So COVID really got in the way of only connections.
Really interesting that they made, having accepted you onto the show one series, they made you audition again.
Yep, we auditioned.
Yeah.
But we auditioned, I think we auditioned much earlier in the process. And they asked us to apply, basically. They said, here you go, if you're thinking of reapplying. Yeah. Please come back. We auditioned much earlier than last year.
Yeah, I don't know whether they weren't allowed to just sort of wave us through, without going through the sort of formalities of it, out of sort of pity of having missed it. I think they probably had to make us. I would assume they probably had to make us go through the process again.
Yeah. We also would have had a different name.
Yes, we were going to be the Scrummagers.
Yeah.
Oh, what were you before?
We were the runners.
Yeah,
and then
not our choice, the producer's choice.
Yeah. I know, because I mean, you and Zach sort of vaguely run. I don't. Definitely
we were going to be the dummy runners.
Dummy runners, but they didn't.
Yeah, we wanted to be the dummy runners, but they didn't allow that for some reason. I can't remember exactly why, and they changed it to the runners, which we just sort of accepted because we were sort of just happy to be there.
and then with the road runners. They were the team that meant that we couldn't be the runners again, so they asked us to change the name. Yeah.
And we came up with lots of ideas, and they said, "Yeah, no, we're going to call you the Scrummagers."
Yes.
better idea, I think.
Yeah, it was better.
We liked it much better.
So, you are through to the semi-final. We will see you again. We really look forward to that, John. We bid adieu to the Harlequins, but you're no stranger to the channel. So I'm sure we'll have you back on again at some point.
Yeah, I have to apply for Mastermind now.
Well, indeed, I was joking about that before we came on air. But you're also going to be hanging around, so we can talk about Mastermind and University Challenge. The Scrummagers will be going off to savour their victory.
We're down in a dark room after all of that.
But before you go, let's just see what your champagne moment was of the evening. Your favourite moment. It could be your favourite question, your favourite answer. What was your favourite point of tonight's show? Zach, start with you. Throw you in at the deep end.
Ooh, favourite point. I mean, I think I will have to say the Othello and Iago question. I think it got us points on the board in the first round, which is something that we struggled with. So it really settled the nerves. And it was a really impressive answer from Liz as well to spot it that early as well. So I'll go with that, I think.
Okay, Liz, from that to you, see what your favourite bit was.
I think probably for me, and the one that's always stuck in my head, I'd forgotten about the Othello question completely, was when I recognised the Robin Williams one, the Russian obstetrician, and then the second one, which I can't remember the wording for it, the catatonic one. Yeah. And I remember because I think the thing about Only Connect is that you know stuff, but unless you're asked stuff that you know. It's just a mystery, and it was when it just suddenly I almost heard the cogs turning in my head and thinking, oh, Robin Williams, this is, and I think that was probably my champagne moment was when I recognised that second one.
Yeah, and Molly, how about you?
Oh, I mean, the Poppadom moment was great. That was brilliant. I have to say that was great. But I think like a personal one, it would be really close between the months, the timesing one, the 7x3 is 21, or the getting the trees at the beginning of the words. and realizing that took out Elmer from the Elephants group. Yeah, I think that really simplifies the wall for us. So yeah, that personally, that was a highlight.
Well, wonderful. We really enjoyed watching you. Really enjoyable show. Very, very impressive performance. So congratulations. You're on to the semi-finals. We look forward to seeing you again. But thanks so much for joining us tonight. Thanks, Zach, Liz, and Molly. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Now we are going to have a look at saying good thank you to our Patreon members. So thanks to all of our Patreons for supporting all things quiz. And we know times are hard. So if you aren't able to support us financially, then certainly watching some of the adverts that pop up and giving us likes and follows, then that's all great. And that's all helps the channel. Oh, being a university challenge. But actually, let's start Mastermind, John. What did you make of tonight's topsy-turvy show?
Yeah, it was a fun one, wasn't it? It's, I mean, exciting from the perspective of it's quite rare that someone who's in third place, I think, was she, going into the general knowledge, then comes through to win. But first thing, superb general knowledge performance from her, all rounds. And yeah, a great story. I thought that, as she said in her little monologue at the end, that she was first on the show 45 years ago. So very nice in the 50th anniversary series that someone who's been on back in the Magnuson days has got through to a semi-final. So yeah, very good.
Yeah, really, really impressive. We had a few returners. Mel Kinsey had been on 20 plus years ago, came back this series, put in a good showing. But yeah, Anna's was great. Now it's bizarre. The first time I went on university, for God's sake, first time I went on Mastermind, I did the same subject. I did the Great Fire of London, and so I have a great interest in how she got on with that, and I was surprised that she got 6, but what, as you said, what she did brilliantly in the general knowledge was 14, which is. That's the sort of form that if she can replicate that general knowledge and boost her specialist subject score, she is a serious contender going forward into the semi-finals and potentially even the final. I was really impressed with that general knowledge. I was surprised. I thought Zahir, on the flip side, brilliant at John Barnes. Absolutely nailed that subject. And Vwari did really well on Lord of the Rings. Neither of them could quite replicate that in the general knowledge. I wonder if somebody put on Twitter, it's nice to see the person with the best general knowledge win. But I don't know, with such an imbalance, is there a better way to win, do you think? Strong specialist subject and less good general knowledge, or vice versa?
I think it's nicer, I think, if someone who does really well in the general knowledge goes through from a personal point of view. I think I prefer that rather than seeing someone who's got 13 or 14 on the specialist and then has scraped through with a 6 or 7 on general knowledge, because then you sort of think, well, that they're really going to be a lamb to the slaughter in the semis if they only get a 6 or 7. Whereas you can obviously improve your specialist subject quite easily if you just bone up on that for the semi-final, where it's really difficult between the heat and the semi-final to suddenly get really good at general knowledge. So really, really pleased for her.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. Molly, who went first, did Shakespeare tragedies made into films. Chris has put a comment here. Massive subject. Some questions seem to be asking for quite minor details. Was a tough set. It really was one that, I mean, I don't know how many films have been made of Shakespeare tragedies, but I reckon a lot. And then if you've got to remember all the cast, all the settings, all the incidental details, that's a huge subject. She never really got to grips with it. Only got 3 points. Nobody wants to see somebody struggle like that, do they, John?
No, it'll be interesting to see. I don't know whether they decided on parameters beforehand in terms of a set list of these films, or if it was just as open-ended as any film based on a Shakespeare tragedy, because like you said, there's literally hundreds. And as someone who is an English teacher in my day-to-day life, obviously I'm fairly familiar with a lot of Shakespeare's plays and I've seen a lot of adaptations. So there were a couple of questions like early on that I knew. I think I got 2 or 3 to be honest, but like you said, there were some really minor details. I think I made a couple of notes of some of the things that I thought were, really specific. Like, there was one question about what is the tattoo that's on Othello's thumb in the Lawrence Fishburne. Now, I have seen that film probably 5 or 6 times because I've shown it to kids that I've taught Othello to, and I didn't remember there being a tattoo at all on his thumb in that. So, so really specific minor details that. There was very little on the actual script, on the actual words, Shakespeare's language. It was more, like you say, about minor details, little props. I suspect a lot of the stuff that she'd revised wasn't the stuff that had come up, sadly.
I mean, I don't know, but I imagine that they probably steer towards things that might be particular to the film, because otherwise you might as well just be doing a set on Shakespeare's tragedies. So it has to be really about the film adaptations.
Yeah, I know someone did Shakespeare's tragedies 2 or 3 years ago, I remember. So I wonder almost if she wanted to just do Shakespeare's tragedies and thought, I can't do that because it's come up, so I'll change it and do about the film adaptations. And then it ended up being about minor props or whatever that she wasn't really keen on. But yeah. So, and then if you get 3 on the specialist, it really must then send you into the general knowledge almost kind of with a defeatist attitude already, thinking I'm not going to be, I'm already 11 points behind the person in the lead. But then on the flip side, I'd say the John Barnes questions, obviously it's only easy if you know the answer, etc. But I mean, I don't consider myself a John Barnes expert, but there were at least 5 or 6, I think, of the John Barnes ones that I knew straight away. Which Michael's saying exactly the same thing there. That you don't need to be a massive John Barnes fan to know that he sang on the Anfield Rap or that he scored with Americanar or whatever.
No, that's true. I mean, Molly picked up 7 in general knowledge to get double figures, which at least rescued something from it. I have to say, I mean, I'm glad Anna won because it now allows me to think that I loved her inventive wrong answers. So for the Gambler by Kenny Rogers, she said the Hallelujah chorus, which I thought was great. And Zahir also he was clearly in a no pass mode. So when it was like, what type of creature, name which creature's wing is this type of sleeve, and he said wallaby. And
there was also a couple where he clearly knew the answer, but I guess it was just the pressure of the chair came to him. So he's where the answer was Test of the D'Urbervilles, he said Hound of the Baskervilles. So he obviously sort of had the right idea of a title in his head, but just got slightly muddled with the actual name.
And that's the pressure. And the critical one, which cost Worry a share of top spot, was saying Richard Osmond rather than Richard Osman. There are a few people on Twitter saying that was a harsh adjudication. I think for me, it's because Osmond is a real surname. It's, it could plausibly be somebody else, but you have to feel for her because that would have taken her into a tie break with Anna. And then at that point, who knows what might happen. So that was tough. Chris, hang on, where are we? I was all over the Anfield Rap. Well, one day, Chris, we'll get you doing it.
I did. I considered once if I go on Mastermind, I might have FA Cup final songs as my specialist subject, possibly.
Brilliant. That would be wonderful. Another comic for Chris. Anna had the best chair style since Paddy Cameron. She really did have quite a unique posture, and Paddy did as well this series. It worked for her. whatever it was. And people have criticised players previously about the position they take. Sometimes eyes closed, sometimes leaning right forward, etc. But whatever works for you, when you're in that moment, you want to be comfortable, you want to be in the zone. I suspect that's where she was. So well done to Anna. Really, really good performance. Before we move on to University Challenge, an absolutely corking match there, let's just have a look at the latest What is the Question? Derek Strickland won last week's What is the Question competition. The answer was Whisper, and this was his question. The Icicle Works was to a scream, while George Michaels was Careless. Jennifer Love Hewitt did it to ghosts, while Cesar Millan did it to dogs. Though you can't say it out loud, what term is being described? Well done for that question, Derek. You can now vote in this week's competition to find the best question for the answer, Grey. Go to tinyurl.com/WITQ Voting is open until Wednesday, when we'll release the final set of questions, and you can find your winner. And if you want to submit questions for What is the Question, well, we release a new Answer in Need of Question every Sunday morning on Facebook and Twitter. All you have to do is reply to that post with your question. Deadline for sending in questions is Monday at 4 p.m. So, join in with that. It's great fun. Get some great questions from some of the best players and setters in the game. University Challenge. It was a weird one. And a good one, but a weird one in that first 4 buzzes, and I don't know how often this happens, first 4 buzzes, 4 different players from the same team getting in, and you think, they're a strong team all round. And then Newcastle fight back, get 3, and then you think UCL are just kind of doing enough all the way through. And then next thing you know, it's tied at the end. What did you make of how that game played out?
Yeah, it was a funny one, wasn't it? I remember UCL from the first round and thinking they were a really strong team and thinking they were a possible contender to go very far in the competition. And I think they cover a broad range of different kind of areas of specialism and stuff. So when they got the first 4 starters, I thought, well, they're going to pile on the points and open up a 200-point lead or something. But yeah, UCL got back in the game, which is nice to see, because you don't really want to see a whitewash. And then towards the end they took the lead, didn't they? And I thought, maybe they're gonna take it. And it's always really pleasing when you sort of look at the clock and it's 8:58 and you think, well, there can only be 1 or 2 starters left. And then I think it was the Tom Daly starter. And then the guy in UCL came in with 10 metres and snatched it at the death. And you could see with the, I think it was the previous set of bonuses, I can't remember, that the 2 guys either side of the captain were sort of saying the answer to him and say it now, because they needed to get through the answers really quickly. And then as soon as they went into the lead, they kind of slowed down a little bit, and then took it on the final starter. So yeah, really good guy. I really enjoyed watching it. I thought it was a really good match.
It was really enjoyable, because going down right to the death, it could have been either team's game, having looked like it was out of Newcastle's hands, but then they strung together 6 consecutive buzzes out of the last 7 starters. Unfortunately, it was the 7th that did for them, but it was a real good fight back. And I have to say, Key, the captain of Newcastle, was just superb. Without him, they would have been nowhere. He got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 starters, and he was
across a range of different subjects.
Yeah. Hydrogen oxide, gravitational lensing, Ceres, 1974, Persepolis, Meitnerium, just really good. Salmon, the captain of UCL, also played a really strong game.
Because I think that Meitnerium question could quite easily trip people. I'm sure a lot of people will be shouting Curium, thinking something that's named after a female chemist. So so very good of him to come in and not get that one wrong.
Yeah. So 2 good teams. We say goodbye. I think we say goodbye to Newcastle. I can't remember at this stage of the competition.
Yeah, sadly, like us, it's one loss and you're out now.
Yeah, but there was it was a good, nice, diverse set of questions, and they were, UCL. They've got potential. They're one of those teams. I'm not, they've got it in them, but I think they will probably have learned a lesson from that somehow. It won't have felt good seeing Newcastle rack up the starters. So I'm sure they would not want to have that happen next time out. But yeah, so that's University Challenge. We roll on to next week. Before we come back and talk about your champagne moment of the night, John, we just want to run through the nominations for Quizzer and Team of the Week. Again, there's quite a lot this week. These are this week's nominees for Quizzer and Team of the Week. Ma Baoli, Series Champion of the Chinese Poetry Quiz Show, Ian Bailey for a QLL Full House, Scott Blish for a Full House in OQL USA and for coming second in the International Culture Challenge, Pat Gibson, who won the February Quest Grand Prix, Diane Halligan, who won Counterpoint Episode 5 with a huge score, Jason King for a Full House in OQL USA, Jay Krishnamurthy, winner of Flames India Season 2, Evan Lynch for winning the International Culture Challenge and scoring 15 out of 15 in the process. Tonight's Mastermind winner, Long Win, a Full House in OQL USA, June Pak, a Full House in OQL USA, Diane Popel for a QLL Full House, Paul Sinha for a QLL Full House, Phil Small for a QLL Full House, Lisa Walker for 7 out of 8 in Division 6 of OQL, and Jia Yedan, a grand finalist in the Chinese Poetry Quiz Show, aged just 12. These are the nominees for Team of the Week. Tonight's Only Connect winners. The Optimists, who beat QLL Division 3B leaders Barb. Palante, the Connections Online Quiz League World Champions. Super Nintendo Charmers, who beat OQL USA Division 2 national leaders Taco Belly Rubs. Team Chinyuanchun, who won Episode 8 of the Chinese Poetry Quiz Show. Team Sui Sui, who won Episode 9 of the Chinese Poetry Quiz Show. Tonight's University Challenge winners. And Wigton Wanderers, who beat OQL Division 2 leaders Team Northeast. You can now vote at tinyurl.com/QW06Feb23. That's tinyurl.com/QW06Feb23. Voting is open until Friday evening when we'll announce the winners. Well, Michael McPartland has just thrown this nugget in. Lisa Walker, aka Lisa Teal from Eggheads, Bombshell, if that's true. And he's also saying, boo, Wigton Warriors for beating his team. As is Chris, boo. It's turning into Panther right now. So, John, I know your team went out tonight. What was your champagne moment anyway of the evening, your favourite moment?
I think probably for overall, the final starter that UCL got on University Challenge, just because it was so tense to the end, and I think it was 170 all or something like that. And then for them to buzz in and get that final starter, I thought was just a very exciting way to finish the episode.
And in terms of your Only Connect journey, we said earlier about you being on University Challenge last year and Only Connect this year. How did it feel this year after going out compared to last year? And what have you taken away from the Only Connect experience?
I think, it's funny. I think we were more disappointed going out on University Challenge, just because both the two quarterfinal matches that we lost were really close. They both, a bit like tonight, UC came down to the final starter, and had we got the final starter, we would have gone through. So when you're that close, you do it's the kind of ifs and the buts and the maybes. Whereas we were convincingly beaten tonight, so we just had to hold our hands up and say well done. And it's such a, everyone says it and it's a real cliche, but it is such a fun experience doing Only Connect, and I recommend anyone who hasn't to. It's probably too late to apply for next series, but the following series. So even though we went out, everyone was, it was so nice to see other people go through and to hear what other teams have gone. Obviously, no spoilers what's going to happen in the rest of the series, but we were just thoroughly supportive of everyone, all the other teams who are supportive of us, and we were supportive of them. So it was just a really, really fun experience all around to do.
Yeah, and there's only one team that can win, but if every other team comes out of having enjoyed it and gained something from it, then that's brilliant. And I think Only Connect is just one of those shows where that tends to happen. Catherine put in her champagne moment early on, getting a 5-pointer on Only Connect. Haven't stopped smiling since. Monumental achievement for someone who struggles with abstract brain teasers because of autism. It's great when that happens. So well done to you. My champagne moment is well, apparently it's not my pronunciation of Chinese dialects. Pilot, I am not pronounced ma bioli. Okay. I really apologize. I do not know how to pronounce everything in Chinese. But yeah, so my champagne moment, probably it's probably that penny drop on Pop Dom, just because it was just very, very entertaining. But it could equally have been Michael fishing that that last second answer as well on the wall, which I thought was really good and really entertaining. But yeah, just some great shows tonight. Really diverse in terms of how they played out, and yeah, really, really good. So thank you, John, for coming back on the show. Really enjoyed having you again. Thank you to the Scrummagers for coming on, and thanks to everybody who's been watching. Don't forget, we've got what is the question, which you can vote for now. tinyurl.com/WITQ and we've got tonight's vote for Quizzer of the Week and Quiz Team of the Week, tinyurl.com/QW06Feb23. And voting is open to those now. You can vote. Those votes are live. Gerard is saying, I lost connection for a moment. Missed anything? Yeah, the best bit of the show, Gerard. The best bit of the show. But that is it. We will be back next week. Now, there is a monumental tussle on Only Connect next week, where I believe it's Crustaceans versus the Cunning Planners. That is a show that is worthy of being a final, but it ain't going to be the final. One of those teams is going to be going home. So we really look forward to that. And we'll see who we can get on from all the shows to chat about the quizzing. Until next week, Chris is saying, thanks, Gareth and John and Valerie. So from all of us to all of you, have a wonderful evening, a great week, and we will see you again this time next week. Goodbye.
Bye, everyone.